ladies and gentlemen, BookTubeAthon has unfortunately come to an end. But today I'm going to share with you my goals, challenges, how I did on them, and a day-to-day breakdown of the reading I did during the BookTubeAthon Readathon last week. On day one, I've read the last 187 pages of The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. I had fully intended to finish this book before the readathon, but it just did not happen. After finishing that, I picked up The Road by Cormac McCarthy and read the first 116 pages, which brought my page count for day one to 303 pages. On day two, I read the last 171 pages of The Road by Cormac McCarthy, and this book was quite heavy and left my heart feeling quite sad, so I needed to pick me up, and before bed, I read the first 32 pages of Isla and the Happily Ever After by Stephanie Perkins. That brought my page count for day two to 203 pages. On day three, I continued reading Isla and read a whopping 93 pages. And that's all that I read on day three. So my page count for day three, 93. On day four, I finally completed Isla and the Happily Ever After by reading the last 213 pages, and again, that was all that I read, so my page count for day four was 213 pages. On day five, I picked up The Opposite of Loneliness by Marina Keegan and read the first 59 pages. And that was all that I read on day five, so again, my page count was 59 pages. On day six, I finished this book and read the last 159 pages. And then I picked up Animal Farm by George Orwell and read the first 28 pages, bringing my total page count for day 6 to 187 pages. On day 7, I realized that I wasn't doing very well in the completing challenges department, so I made it my goal to try to cram in as many of the challenges on the very last day. So I kicked it in gear and read the last 69 pages of Animal Farm by George Orwell. After finishing Animal Farm, I decided to try to complete the challenge of picking a book that someone picked out for you. I had two options for this one. The first one that I tried was The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender. This was in my original TBR video as a book from a genre that I had read little from, but it was also the book that Katrina from Little Book Owl had chose for me to read. I read the first 12 pages, and while it was absolutely captivating, I knew that I'd want to take my time with this and not speed through the 300 pages of loveliness. So after the first 12 pages, I set this down, but I did count it towards my page count for day 7. And here's where I had to stray from my TBR. I realized that there was no possible way that I could read the entire series of the Chronicles of Narnia in less than 12 hours, so I went to Twitter and asked you guys for recommendations on graphic novel series that I could quickly devour in less than 12 hours. And I got so many great recommendations, but I ultimately went with the graphic novel duology of Boxers and Saints. So I read the entirety of this duology on day 7, which was 495 pages. At this point, I realized I still needed to watch The Road movie in order to complete the book-to-movie adaptation challenge, and I still hadn't read a book that technically someone else had picked out for me specifically for the readathon. So then I remembered that Ashley from Said the Story had recommended the first volume of Sandman. So I picked up this book and realized that, like the other book that was picked for me, this was a book that I was going to need to take my time with. But I did read the first 48 pages of this, and I do look forward to finishing quite soon, especially since I hear that this is going to become a movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And unfortunately, I only watched 1 hour of The Road before falling asleep, and it kept happening to me this week, not because it was a bad movie, but because I was tired, and I do look forward to finishing that beautiful film eventually in the future. But all of those books that I read, including the partial books that I read on day 7, brought my page count to 612 pages on day 7. Let us see how I did on the challenges. The first challenge was to read a book with pictures on it, and for that challenge, I read Boxers and Saints. The second challenge was to start and finish a challenge, which I did with Boxers and Saints. The next challenge was to read a book with red on the cover, and that was Animal Farm by George Orwell. The next challenge was to read a book that someone else picked out for you, and I feel like I could technically bend this one. I could say that
several people recommended this book to me specifically. I was reading this as a buddy read, so it was picked out for me. I was sent this to review and promote, so it was picked out for me. And so many lovely people suggested that I read this.
So kind of completed that challenge. So it just depends on how strict you want to be with that challenge. The next challenge was to read a book from a genre that you had read the least of this year, and that is The Opposite of Loneliness, because it is a collection of short stories and essays, and I haven't read anything like this so far this year. And the next challenge was to read a book and watch its movie adaptation, and I did read The Road, and I did watch half of the film, so I kind of completed this one as well. Kind of. And while I technically didn't read 7 books in their entirety, I did finish 7 books during the readathon.
Since I only I finished the last 187 pages. I'm not sure it counts, but meh.
And my page count for the week was 1,670, which wasn't quite the 300-page average, but I'm quite pleased with that. So, depending on how strict you are with the challenges, I completed anywhere from 5 to 7 of the challenges, which is pretty damn awesome. And I even managed to make time to make a lovely video for the Day 7 challenge of showing where you read. If you've missed that video, I am quite proud of it. So, if you want to check it out, I'll leave it linked down below. I would say that this BookTubeAthon was definitely a success. I read so many good books that I can't wait to share with you. Speaking of which, after this readathon, I'm officially 14 books behind on my goal of making an individual video for each book. So after this video and probably a book haul for July, you'll probably be seeing a lot of book talk videos on this channel. So that is all for my BookTubeAthon wrap up. As always, please feel free to share your thoughts on any of the things that I said or shared with you today, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye!
I'm done, sir.